This will be a brief overview of the Animator and the animation controller and how to create a simple state machine. The scene that I'm starting with has just a cube in it with a script attached. I'll look at the script quickly and explain what's happening. I have a Boolean parameter that we'll use for setting states in the state machine, and I have an update function that is checking for elapsed time and comparing against the value of the Boolean. If the elapsed time is greater than the predefined wait time, and the Boolean has not been set to true already, then we'll set it to true and print done. In Unity, what that looks like is if I press play, it waits 3 seconds and then says done. I'll use that script a little bit later to change the state of an animation controller and play a different animation. In order to create animations, we can attach them to game objects. I have the cube selected now, and I will create a new Animator component. If I open the Animator window, it looks empty right now because I don't have any states created yet. Back in the Scene tab, I will activate the Animation window, which brings up the timeline down here. I can create a new animation by clicking Create. It asks me for a location to save, so I will type a name right here. And now I can begin adding keyframes and creating animations. The easiest way to create an animation is to turn on the animation record mode, which is auto keyframing, and then start setting properties, and it'll automatically add those properties into the timeline and add keyframes as well. You can also add properties using the Add Property button and toggle open any of these different areas to find things that I want to keyframe. Then later on in time, I will set some other values. Let's say I want this to loop. I'll set a keyframe at this point by clicking Add Keyframe and then making some changes. And I can scrub through this to see what happens. Pretty simple. If I press play, you'll see that the animation plays and loops. Now, if I want to add another timeline, another animation, I can click this drop-down menu and create a new clip. I'll make this object do something a little different. I'll add transform, position, add transform, rotation as well. And that automatically sets keys at the beginning and end if I add those to the timeline through the Add Property menu. So for this animation, I want to make it move off to the side instead of up and down. And I'll press play again, and you'll see that it's playing the first timeline that I created. To see why, I'll switch to the Animator tab, and I can see that it is now populated with an entry state, an any state, and my 2 animation clips. But one of them has a transition from entry, and it is marked as default. It's orange, that means it's the default clip. That's what'll play first. If I right-click on transition on Test Animation 2 and choose Set as Layer Default State, then the entry state goes to Test Anim 2, and if I press play, you'll see that it plays the second animation that I made. Now, in order to switch between animations, we can programmatically do that at any time by creating transitions from one state to another or from one animation to another. Let's set this one back to default and create a transition from Test Anim 1 to Test Anim 2. And I did that by right-clicking TestAnim1 and choosing Make Transition. Now again, I'll press play and see what happens. You can see that it played the first clip once and now is looping on the second clip. It's doing that because in the Animator, if I click on the transition itself, it has an exit time. If I turn that off and play again, you'll see that now the first animation clip does not have an exit time, so it never finishes. If I wanted to loop between those two animations, I could go back to the Animator and create a transition from TestAnim2 back to TestAnim1 and make sure that both of these clips have an exit time, or both of the transitions. Press play, and now it'll loop between the two states. Now, in order to control those transitions and make them not automatically play, I need to turn off has exit time for both of them. And for this transition, I will choose a condition. I'll add a parameter. And right now, the parameter list is empty. So I need to create a parameter in the Parameters tab on this side. Click plus, Boolean, and I'll name this play clip 2. Enter. And choose play clip 2 as my condition. Now I can also use that same parameter to control the transition back to TestAnim1. I'll add a condition to the upward transition here. Make sure the Boolean is selected, and I'll set that to false. So when it's false, it'll transition to the first one. When it's true, it'll transition to the second one. Now I hit play and see what happens. Now it only plays the first clip because that Boolean parameter is never changed. I can bring up the Animator, and I can see that this is still playing. If I place my Animator over here, I can set this value to see what happens. It makes the transition, and it makes the transition back. In order to control that value, I will go back to my script and set the value when I hit my end time. So the first thing I'll do is look for a component. I'll do get component animator dot set bool and find the name of that parameter. And we'll set it to true. Save, return to Unity, and press play. Now, as soon as we hit that moment in time, the transition happens and the second clip is playing. So you can see with a little bit of scripting and a little bit of work in the Animator state machine, I can quickly gain control over lots of different states, lots of different animations, and create interesting and complex applications.